Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer ended up seeing a new meta update go live with Season 4 Reloaded. We also got the introduction of a brand new shotgun as well. And so today, I wanted to go through and break down the new top 10 best weapons to be running in MW3 MP. So we're starting first with one of my absolute favorites, the BP50. I run this thing a ton over in Warzone, but then also in multiplayer here. This thing kills quick. It's super aggressive for a rifle. All around, it just feels super reliable, and it's one of my main go-tos if I'm being honest. So Moat 40 stock is great here, better movement, and then also better control all in one. Not something you see a ton of, so it's super useful and super valuable when you can sort of build the weapon out basing that off of just one attachment. Usually you'd have to use two, one for mobility and one for control. That's best of both worlds. I even use the 45 round extended mag in multiplayer here just because this fire rate is so fast. This isn't super necessary. You could drop down to the default and use a laser for a faster ADS or a better sprint to fire, or you could put on a high grain or something. To me though, that extra ammo saves me a lot. DR6 hand stop keeps things snappy and aggressive, better movement, strafe, ADS, and sprint to fire. Lower 9 heavy barrel is better range and velocity, so you could use this thing close range, mid range, long range. Doesn't really matter, ground war or small map mosh pit. Then Zem 35 compensator, better control, minimal cons to your velo and your ADS. Love the feel of this thing, super easy, and it puts players down like nothing. Now the FJX Horus Scimitar kit ended up seeing a buff actually with Season 4 Reloaded for multiplayer. This thing is great. It's got great range for an SMG. It's really easy to use, all while being very aggressive and very agile at the same time. Love the versatility of this thing. So as mentioned, we got that Scimitar kit on here. A 26-meter range for a sub is pretty crazy, all things considered. I use no stock on here. This thing is pretty easy to use, especially in SMG based engagements. However, Ripper Light would also be a solid alternative there if you don't want all the control cons that come when you put on no stock when you use that on there. We also got high grain on here, extends that range and that velocity some. DR6 hand stop yet again for the better movement benefits, and Zem 35 compensator yet again. That said, like Requitter suppressor is really good here. You could use Shadow Strike if you wanted to as well. There's some decent choices, but for me, Zem 35 is kind of a no-brainer in a lot of situations, especially for multiplayer where you're always running and gunning and up in the enemy's faces. However, the FJX Horus is also really good if you don't use the Scimitar kit and you just use the base version of it. Now, it did see some slight nerfs with Season 4 Reloaded. It's still crazy good if you're an aggressive player, and this build in specific is so fast. I love the feel of this thing. So we do again have Zem 35 compensator on here and the DR6 hand stop, surprise surprise. I've got the light barrel on here for some better movement, better strafe, sprint to fire. Helps out a little bit with control too, which is kind of curious, but hey, won't take that for granted at all. 48 round extended mag here works fine. I don't think you need to jump up to 60. You could. It technically isn't slowing you down at all, and I still don't know if that's actually intended or not, that the stats don't change at all, but 60 or 48 is going to be totally sufficient there. Then I go for the light stock because I am using iron sights in this case. I like the irons on the Scimitar kit more. They're just all right here, and so when I put on no stock, the recoil is just too much with the iron sights on there. So Ripper Light works just fine for this. Really like the feel of this. Like I said, if you're a run and gun style player, this is one of your best choices right now. MCW conversion kit is another one of my favorite choices for multiplayer. We know this thing is crazy over in Warzone, but here in multiplayer, you build it a similar way and it just fries. You could use this really well as like a mid-range rifle or just as like a run and gun AR SMG sort of hybrid style weapon as well. So again, we got the Jack Raven kit on there for the conversion kit. Don't love the irons. I like the ELO set on this a lot though, so I go for the MK3 reflector. I do use the 40 round extended mag here in MP. It's got a faster fire rate, so you do kind of burn through that ammo pretty quickly there. DR6 hand stop just keeps it nice and aggressive as well. And then I actually use the Scratch 20 suppressor. This helps out with firing aim stability, makes the gun super accurate in my opinion, and hurts your ADS speed by, oh, what's that behind the face cam? 1%? Yeah, it's not really noticeable whatsoever. So it's basically free firing aim stability, and it keeps you off the map, so why not run that, right? Love the feel of this thing across the board, whether you're playing multiplayer or Warzone, but definitely stands out in the top 10 here in MP. Now, of course, we got to talk about the Kar 98K. This thing is nuts across the board, and it's still so good here in multiplayer. Even though they did nerf the aim assist properties of it, it's going to be a one-shot quick scope machine. This thing is so much fun to run around with. It feels just like MW 2019. So here I do have no stock on here. Obviously going to make that movement go absolutely nuts. So this thing is going to be super aggressive. I go for the range color optic here. It's like the default one from MW 2019. On top of that, Razor Hawk laser sight for the better ADS and sprint to fire on there, so it's just even more aggressive. I got DR6 hand stop, better movement speed, ADS speed and whatnot. Then I messed around with high grain. I like having that better velo on there. It just makes the weapon feel a little bit more consistent, but you could always drop that, swap that out for a barrel if you wanted faster ADS speed from that, or if you wanted you know, a certain muzzle here, if you wanted to stay off the radar or something, you could mess around there. But I like the feel of this. It's an aggressive sniper build that'll one shot pretty much regardless of where you're shooting players. It's still so easy to use, feels phenomenal. By the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons and class setups here today, if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like. It's always really appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you are in the know for the latest info going on in COD, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Next up here, we got the Superi. This is probably my #1 favorite gun in the game across the board right now. This thing's strafe speed is nuts, especially with this build on here. Damage is great. It's low recoil. The general movement is phenomenal. I love everything about this gun right now. So we got the light barrel on here. This helps out with strafe speed. We got the DR6 hand stop. This helps out with strafe and general movement, and the ADS and sprint to fire, of course. We got the cutthroat stock on here. This helps out a ton with strafe. Then I go for the 40 round extended mag. It works well here in multiplayer or in Warzone. This is actually the same setup I use in Warzone, and it translates so well 1-to-1. Also go for high grain on this too for the better range and velo. That said, if you don't need like the extended mag or something here, you could throw on a laser, snappier ADS, M35, even easier to use. You got some options regardless of what you want to use as that 5th and final attachment. This thing's gonna fry. Now, per usual with these top 10s at the start of a season and then with the reloaded updates, I always want to include the new weapons, even if they might not make it into the top 10. That's kind of the case with the Spaz here. Realistically, I don't think this is a top 10 gun, but it's new and I want to make sure you guys have a setup for it here in multiplayer. So the Reclaimer 18, I actually been running this a ton in tac stance, and that's what this build is optimized for here. So the center mass grip tape, we got the light stock because this helps out a ton with movement and your tac stance spread. The tac laser helps out with your tac stance spread. Bruin Bastion angled grip helps out with your tac stance spread. Then Bryson choke is going to do more of the same. So this is super accurate from a tac stance POV. Very fun to run around with as a shotgun. Of course, if you're in hardcore, you can build this however you want. It'll one shot basically. But for core modes, tac stance I think is super efficient here, and it's pretty nostalgic running around with the Spaz again. Following that, I've got the Wasp Swarm. This thing is a spray and pray machine, has a really fast TTK here in multiplayer, especially when you are like up in the enemy's faces. This thing can just knock players out so easily. So I don't love the irons here. I use a NightAR model 2023. The fire rate is so crazy that even in multiplayer, a 50 round mag is pretty much a necessity here. You could try 40, you're going to be reloading more, just straight up. You could go to 100, you're going to be slower more, just a matter of preference there. So I meet in the middle with the 50 round extended mag. Not really the middle, but it's the middle option, I guess. We got the Kimura laser sight, better ADS and sprint to fire. Reckless 90 long barrel for a better damage range where it's going to have its fastest TTK. And then DR6 hand stop, better movement across the board. So this thing is great for running and gunning and playing just super aggressive, being up in the enemy's faces. That's where it'll knock out players back to back super easily and super efficiently. The base striker is also really solid here in multiplayer. It's low recoil, fast movement, and again, a really reliable TTK, especially into like the mid-range based fights, or what you'd classify as mid-range in multiplayer here, right? So again, that deadly duo of ZEM35 compensator and the DR6 hand stop. We got high grain on here for the better range velocity. We also got the Kimura laser sight for a faster ADS and sprint to fire. And then I go for the light stock, just a little bit of better movement with your general movement speed and your tac sprint speed. Just makes you a little bit more aggressive. This thing's already very fast and very snappy, and I love the feel of this. And then lastly, I've got the SVA, and this thing's kind of weird to build out because this thing, for whatever reason, has attachments that just aren't super convenient like most MW3 ones are. Like for instance, we got a laser sight on this, which I usually would not run on a mid to long range based build for the better ADS and sprint to fire. Like that's not super advantageous. The ADS is, sprint to fire not as much, but if you want to run a stock, I mean, they all hurt your idle sway for some reason, like all the good ones at least, like Marquis 11, not really that great here. Main V6 is an option, it's better control, but I'd be using this in like hyperburst where there's no recoil, and you don't really need the recoil benefits. If you were using this in full auto, you could run this and, you know, drop the laser sight, and that'd be a viable option there. Reflector sight, basic elo, I don't love the irons here, and this is great for pretty much any range. 30 round default mag works just fine, so we go for high grain rounds, even better range. The velo here, hit scan range will work well on any map you're playing here in multiplayer. DR6 hand stop, better movement yet again. Then I go for the precision barrel, which is better velocity, better range, better control, and better aiming idle sway. So this thing is going to be easy to use in full auto or in hyper burst. It's going to have a super fast TTK, especially compared to the other rifles. This thing's a really fun AR to run and gun with and just play a little bit more aggressive with. But that being said, those are the top 10 best weapons here in MW3 multiplayer after Season 4 Reloaded. That's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you're always up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.